I want to make a video here about idolatry and coronavirus and all the paranoia that's going on about this thing. It's an interesting question. I've thought of a lot about in my life. What is idolatry? Avodah all the things people talk about when they talk about religion. And a little bit of background for you. I grew up Catholic, so I grew up in the church watching the priests and the statues and the altar boys and all of that. I experienced a lot of trauma growing up as a kid in a church environment. Became disgusted with it at a certain point in my life, and sort of walked away from that community, at least from the dogma and the traditions of the Catholic Church. I felt were somewhat lacking and perverse. But I did learn lessons there, and I learned how to pray, and I learned how to think deeply, and I learned how to think critically, and to examine stuff, and to go to the source for a text, and come up with my own opinion. Another major help with that has been 12-step program, where I get to come up with my own understanding of God or a higher power or whatever I want to call it. And I don't have to take anyone else's opinions as fact. It won't work. It won't work if I do. I can't follow somebody else's belief because that's their belief, and I have my own. And my own belief is the only thing that's going to save me. It's the only one that's going to save me from dying a miserable alcoholic death. Alcohol is al-Kul in Arabic, spirit of death. Put it simply. Al-Kul is a ghoul. It's the angel of death. I want to call it that. So, there we go. Now we have coronavirus. We have a lot of people teaching and believing that there's some kind of war going on between different religious systems in the world, and that there is such a thing as avodah and believing in false gods and false idols, and I totally believe and understand that. I get what that is all about. It's having this sort of schizophrenic belief system about God, or this belief that God is divided up into multiple heads or multiple authority systems or levels of control, and that if you worship one, you'll get power over the others, and it's just a basic collective unconscious war going on in our heads, in our own hearts, in our collective unconscious. This beliefs that there is some sort of division and separation in the Godhead, and that is what perpetuates and is the cause of all wars on the face of this planet, and that is why it's such a bad thing to believe that one person's understanding is better or greater or superior or justification for killing and murder is that's a detriment to peace on this planet. It will never cause peace. It will never result in peace. So, having come from a multi faceted religious background and somewhat interfaith, interspiritual journey, I can tell you that in every religion that I've followed or believed or studied or been a part of, there is a tradition somewhere in the deep, esoteric, mystical scriptures of that faith. It's not surface level for any of them, hardly, that I can find. I mean, it's usually hidden behind some rabbi or some personality or some hierarchical body that wants to keep people in a trance and dependent on them. There is a tradition of oneness and unity, what would be known in Aramaic as Enod Milvado. I find it in the Christian faith, I find it in the Jewish faith, I find it in the Muslim faith, I find it amongst the Hindus. I find this belief everywhere I look, hard enough and deep enough and long enough for it. And it's time to stop blaming each other and pointing out each other's faults and thinking we understand what other people believe and believing that we know what's best for them, and come to a place of understanding others and trying to understand and striving to understand the kavana, the intention behind each other's belief and each other's faith, because I find it among Christians, there's many Christians that I know that they do not believe in a Trinity the way that the Jewish sages accuse them of. It's just not the belief of many devout, adamant, understanding Christians that there is such a thing. It's much more of a mystical expression of a reality that they understand, which could be explained as simply as Chokmah Bina Dat, something like this. And when it comes to the whole issue of idolatry, well, what is idolatry? What is it? What does it even mean? Is it a pestle? A pestle is a carving, an engraving? Okay, so then you should take all pictures down of any rabbis and burn them. You should destroy all statues in your site. You should destroy all artwork that exists. If that's what you believe, do that. And then tell us how it works out. And maybe we'll follow you. But my understanding of that is that there is a spiritual intention, kavana, behind worship, and that people that have things like that in their homes and in their synagogues and in their town, maybe there's a alleyway full of artwork with statues and pictures of rabbis in a mystical city in Israel, and that the reason for that is that people are striving to achieve an ideal. It's an ideal that that person represents. It's an ideal that those statues represent. It's an ideal that people are trying to live up to, not an idol. And I believe that God has mercy on us for our intentions And that if we're striving to achieve an ideal, or we're striving to create peace, or we're striving to create unity on this planet, and to unite with the source, that we will experience mercy and judgment, and that it will be beautiful. Whatever the result is, it's going to be a mixture. It's going to be a combination of good and bad, so to speak, as we perceive it. But ultimately, it's all for the good. Ein od milvado.